My name is Gary Wyatt, and I'm the Associate Provost and Dean of the Honors College, and it's my pleasure and my honor to be here tonight to welcome you and to introduce our speaker. The Bonner and Bonner Lecture Series was established in 1992 and was named in honors of Dr. Thomas and Mary Bonner, ESU's first and second African American faculty members. The series provides a valuable window to diversity, promoting tolerance and understanding on campus and in the community and throughout the state. We are grateful to former faculty and staff members Beverly Thompson, William King, Harry Stevens, and Kamira Maxwell, who recognized the need for this lecture series back in the early 1990s, and whose advocacy helped establish it as an important tradition at Emporia State. In 2015, the Honors College, with its focus on civil leadership for the common good, assumed the responsibility for sponsoring and organizing this landmark annual event. Consistent with the tradition of the lecture series to promote diversity and inclusion, the role of civic leadership in making progress on challenges facing our communities is also a theme of every speech. Tonight we are delighted to have Michelle De La Isla as our speaker. She has overcome many challenges in her life, including poverty, homelessness, and the challenges of being a single parent. She faced these challenges with courage and determination, completing a bachelor's degree in biology from Wichita State, and has gone on to become the mayor of Topeka. Mayor De La Isla has a passion for service. She has served as a teacher for Upward Bound and traveled the country as a MANA volunteer, educating women on financial literacy. She is a founding member of the local Untitled Chapter of Mentoring Latina Girls. She has participated in the Capital District Group to advocate and develop the current downtown Topeka plan. In 2010, Mayor De La Isla became Executive Director of Topeka Habitat for Humanity. She plays a significant role in an annual Girls Empowerment Conference at Washburn University, where over 170 participants attend, and she regularly volunteers at the Topeka Rescue Mission. Elected to the Topeka City Council in 2013, she served as Deputy Mayor in 2016 and is the Diversity and Inclusion Representative for Westar Energy. She currently serves as Mayor of Topeka. Her greatest honor, however, is being called Eric, Christina, and Lorraine's mom. I am deeply honored tonight to introduce you, Mayor Michelle De La Isla.
So like a true millennial, is this working? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. On? Yeah. 1, 2. Oh yeah, it is. Hey! How you doing, guys? If you would allow me just a second to be as awkward as only I know how to be, and fix the microphone in front of all of you. So I am going to pull my phone out so that I can have a timer, because I know that you guys have things to do, and I don't want to take too much of your time tonight. But I do want to open this up to discussion. We just came from a phenomenal dinner with some of the students from the Honors Academy, and oh my God, wow. The conversations that we were having with regards to diversity, to challenges, we talked about microaggressions, we talked about how do we handle leadership, and how do we handle individuals coming at us on a constant basis with questions and feeling like, as a minority, you're constantly having to be the educator at the same time that you're exhausted. And it was amazing that most people would not believe that all these conversations were happening with the president of the university in the room. And the whole time, she's sitting there with the most gracious smile, providing encouragement and support to the individuals that are sharing their vulnerable feelings on how they feel displaced sometimes in their place as students, maybe even in their place as professionals. So, first of all, I want to say thank you for including me here tonight. They told you a whole bunch of stuff about me, and I tell you what, I am awkward and funny, and it's just like, not funny, like funny like I think that I'm hilarious, but it's just, that awkward person that you look at them and you just can't help but just go like, oh God. So as he's saying, please sit down and let's take our seats, you hear a seat that goes, that was me. Last one to sit down and to follow instructions. So my apologies for feeling like I'm back at school. I wanted to share tonight just a little bit of who I am, and then talk to you about why I feel that each and every one of you has the responsibility to lead. And I want to pause for a second, because I want you guys to have this sink in. Each and every one of you has the responsibility to lead. You don't need a title. This whole mayor thing was given by a group of people and can very easily be taken away. There's going to be 1,000 more of me, right? But what nobody can take away is who I am and how I make somebody feel when they're standing in front of me. And what a true leader is, because a leader is not a title. A leader is an action. It's just overcoming and being able to understand not only how you are presenting yourself, but most importantly, how do other people present themselves when they're in your presence? And that is what leadership is really all about. Is figuring out what the magic sauce is of you being able to allow somebody to be everything that they are, without judging and leaning in to ask questions when you don't understand. Because it's when we're kind of fearful that we start making assumptions and biases start to pop up. So I talk about leadership as a single mom, as a woman that faced domestic violence, as a woman who was homeless, as a woman that has a child that has severe persistent mental illness, as a woman that leads and still finds herself alone in a boardroom, not represented by anybody else. And I say these things not because I need a medal for those things. I say these things because it shows you how imperfect I am. I started by showing you how much of a mess I am. I turned on the microphone, it didn't work, so I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, right? And I think that we have this glorified expectations of individuals that have these great titles. And we expect that automatically because you have a title of doctor or you have a title of mayor, you have to act in a certain way so that you could fit that box. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. I am the child of a woman who at the age of 13 had her first pregnancy. And at the age of 16 had her real pregnancy that lasted to term. With the same man that was in her life in a very abusive relationship. My mom fled to Puerto Rico because she wanted to be safe. And in that process of her trying to figure out who she was, she didn't have the bandwidth to have 2 kids to tote. So I thank God for my grandparents, who were and still are, my grandmother who's still alive, an amazing influence in my life. So I love the topic of diversity because when people talk about diversity, I always try to train people that, hey, diversity is a fact. What we talk about is inclusion. Because facts are that I grew up in a house talking English to my mother, Italian to Mima, and Spanish to Mama, because none of them spoke the same language in the house. However, everybody understood each other. Everybody knew what the chancla meant. Everybody, and there's 2 Puerto Ricans in the room, knew that whether you were Italian or Puerto Rican, when you were pointing to something, you did it with your lips. Mira, mama, where's the ketchup? Okay. Everybody figured out a way to talk to each other, right? And you grow up in an environment in which you have all these different languages, all these different cultures. And I grew up just always feeling kind of awkward. When I went to school, I ended up going to it was a Christian school. Discípulos de Cristo was the first school that they put me in. And it was a Christian school, and I was the first kid that showed up, and believe it or not, in Puerto Rico, I was dark. So it was just like, and then the other thing is that this hair is not real. This is the work of 30 minutes every morning, my appointment with the blow dryer. And I did not know how to manage my curly hair. So here I was, this little, very dark brown kid with poof that showed up at school without really knowing how to manage that poof. So I was picked on constantly because you had the kids wanting to talk to me in Spanish, and I just spoke like little bits of Spanish, In Puerto Rico, they call it Spanglish. And I did not fit in. I just did not fit in. And I had this keen awareness that I did not fit in. I did not fit in. And I always had the task of figuring out if I was going to let that chip be on my shoulder, if I was going to do something about it. By the age of 17, I had a really tragic experience with my first boyfriend. He took away from me something that I could never get back. And when I went to ask my mom for help, she said that I provoked it, so I went for a jog. It's when I became homeless, because I was not about to go back home, and I was too stubborn to go back and say I'm going to deal with it. And my family, somebody asked me in the dinner today, what was the expectation of my family? I think that my family thought I was going to end up dead. And that I really there was no hope for me. Because, you know, Mirala, she left. She was involved with this boy. Now we don't even know where she's at. What the heck is she doing? Little did my family know that I had tried re-enrolling over and over in the University of Puerto Rico. And I failed miserably. I was talking about how it took me 8 years to get my degree in biology. And it was because I kept on applying, getting in, and then flunking out. Applying, getting in, and then flunking out. But I didn't give up. And in the process of figuring out, sleeping in abandoned houses, doing that shuffle of going from one place to the other, I met a boy and ended up pregnant. And that's when I thought, oops. It's really easy to couch surf or to surf in the morning when you're living close to the beach and to eat everybody's scrap food that they leave behind when you don't have any other responsibilities. Because believe you me, being homeless in Puerto Rico is not the same as being homeless in Topeka or in Kansas. We don't have the weather that we have here. And I'll never forget that I had some friends that took pity on me, took concern on me, had cared enough for me that said, hey, why don't you stay in my mom's living room and we'll help you figure out what you're gonna do. So I'm a planner, I'm a strategist. And I'm like, okay, so I need to figure this out. The definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome. And I remember that was the first time in my life that I had to make a crucial decision. So was I gonna try to go back to school after failing it year after year after year? This is 1996, and I graduated high school in 1993. I should have been close to graduating, right? And I still didn't learn the lesson that maybe college wasn't for me. But I still figured out, and I thought, hey, if I could get away from the mess over here in San Juan, where I was at, and I could go back to the Mayagüez campus and I could beg the dean to let me in and explain to him my situation. This time I'll have to take it serious, because if I go to school, I could get health insurance. If I could get health insurance and I could go back to school, I could do student loans. Don't do that. And I'll get all the student loans, and I'm able to pay some bills, and I'm able to get my life stable for my son. And that's chapter 1 of the most influential people in my life. I met with this interim dean, and I'm sure that if he would have been a permanent dean, he probably would have been jaded by all the stories that he would have heard over and over and over again of students telling him how bad their life was. But this dean was a psychologist, and I shared my story with him, and he said, you know, Michelle, you're angry. To which smart aleck Michelle said, no, Sherlock, what do you expect me to be, right? I'm supposed to come in here saying, hi, I'm pregnant and homeless. And he said, you know, I get that you're angry, but you have a decision, you have a lot of power. And I thought, what? He's like, yeah, you can choose to take opportunities, or you could choose to let the anger manage you and drive you towards a worse path, and God knows where you're gonna end up. I'm not saying that you don't have a right to be angry. I'm telling you that you have power on how you harness the energy that you have inside of you. And I was thinking, put yourself back in 1997 at this point in time. 96. Seriously? You're a teenager, pretty much, and somebody is telling you that you have power over the circumstances that you haven't had any power over throughout your whole life? To say that I was upset is an understatement. But I controlled myself, and I just nodded my head, and he very gracefully told me, I will accept you back into the university so that you could finish your education. You have a chance. Don't let me down. Give me your word that you're not going to let me down. And I did. And my word matters to me, because growing up with people telling me that they were going to do something and not doing it was a big boo-boo for me, right? So I decided to open up the door and let somebody give me an opportunity. But I had the opportunity that I had to just walk in through that door. And because I gave my word to that person, I really started doing awesome. I ended up getting my health insurance. My son was born in a great hospital in Puerto Rico. I got my first student loan to get a car. I got Section 8. I got my first little apartment. I will never forget getting my first apartment. It was just like a whole new world for me. And honestly, guys, I swear, I thought that in that Section 8 apartment, I'll never forget, it was this like basement of a house that was 2 tiers, and there was a farm in the back. And it was the smallest thing, but it was like the most beautiful, beautiful thing to me in the universe. I was so grateful by just being able to just be independent. But I had a chance and had the opportunities. I started singing at church. Father Pat said, kid, you have talent. We're gonna get you to a doctor. You're not looking too good. We're gonna get you checked out. And after that, we're gonna talk because you need to leave. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you need to leave. We don't want you in Puerto Rico. It's too easy for you to have the baby, go with the grandparents on the weekend, and then you get to do whatever you want to do. And it's not like you're doing drugs or anything stupid, but I think that seeing your transformation, you need to get out of here so that you could just better yourself in your life. And at that point in time, they discovered that I had breast cancer, and they gave me treatment, and they're like, okay, you need to go. Where do you want to go? And I'm like, okay, I had cancer. And that same year, 1998, my grandpa died of cancer. And I'm like, I want to beat cancer, and I'm going to be, a molecular biologist, and I'm going to do cancer research. So we started looking for universities that did any cancer research. At that point in time, Dr. Wendell Levitt was doing research in Wichita State University. And you could, as an undergrad student, kind of play around in the lab. Miraculously, with a 2 point, I don't know what the heck it was, they took me in. After 2 years of withdrawals with Fs, okay? And they sent me here, and I came to Wichita State, and I was able to just get my degree. And here is when leading started to happen. Leading didn't start when I got my title. Leading started when, for the first time in my life, I had to get a job. And it was, you're outside of the school system, and you need to start working. And the first job, by providence, by divine providence, was doing Upward Bound. So out of all those challenges that I've been telling you, I'm sure that none of you in this audience has had any struggles whatsoever, right? And especially when you're in college, and you're like cool and hang out with your friends, you're super open and vulnerable about those challenges, right? You go to your friends and you're like, yo, it's awesome. That's an awesome whip, yeah. I had to eat scraps the other day. That's really awesome. We don't do that stuff. We tend to carry our issues to ourselves. And we hold on to that pain, and we hold on to it. And it starts like gnawing at us on the inside because we don't talk about it, right? We don't dare to be vulnerable. And the first job at Upward Bound introduced me to the most beautiful students that I had ever met. And they were all these beautiful Black and Latino and Caucasian low-income students that really had the same and worse of a life than I had had. And because I had put myself in a position that I didn't even know that I was going to have, to sit down and interact with them and ask them about their college aspirations, and started hearing from them the same stuff that I heard from my family. Hey, I want to go to college. You can't go to college. You're stupid. You need to get a job because you got a kid. And I remember thinking, that just sounds so crazy. I'm just not going to listen. I'm going to keep on trying. And then all of a sudden, after me reaching that dream, I'm sitting down with kids and I'm asking them, where are you going to go to school? And they're like, I don't know, man, Michelle, I gotta get a job. I don't even know I'm going to finish high school because I got to help my mom feed my brother. Or I heard stories of, yeah, You know, my family works in this little restaurant and they're waiting for me because we can't do this on our own. They're depending on me. My favorite one was the ones that I heard all the time, because I was a weird kid. I used to love to read all the time. It's like, yeah, no, whenever I talk to my family about my education, they're like, what, do you think you're better than us? And I remember sitting there for the first time in my life and going, I'm not the only one. It expanded my universe. And it taught me for the first time, even though I didn't know how to articulate what I was doing, that I could lead. I was able to lead not because I had a title or because I was anything special. Little did I know that just the mere action of just sitting down and listening to those students and being able to hear their stories and say, I get you. I've been there. I understand. And there's a way out, was a form of leadership. Because I tell you guys, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That is leadership. Leadership is influence. It's opening doors behind you so that everybody can come through. And figuring out if somebody is falling down, you lift them up and you push them. And you keep on pushing them till they get to their finish line. And then you clap. You clap in pride. That's leadership, and that doesn't stop. And I didn't need to have a fancy title. I wasn't even a teacher. I was like a summer attendant at Upper Bound during that summer, you know? And I started working with these kids. And then little by little, then I met the girls' dad, and we got married. And sometimes you don't have people to talk to, so you repeat the same mistakes that your family has. And I did that. And then I ended up being moved to Topeka in the middle of that mess with 2 girls now and my son. And I was like, I don't want to go to Topeka. It's like, I'm teaching biology. And I'm cleaning houses, and we have a good business, and we just bought this beautiful house in Wichita. And then I get to Topeka, and I thought my world was ending, because my ex-husband's mental health has gotten so bad that he just was becoming very aggressive, not only towards me, but towards the kids. And I found myself, after the whole story that I had, dealing with finding myself in Topeka, a city that I knew no one, as a single abused mom, working in a nonprofit organization, thinking, what the heck am I gonna do? But then, opportunities came knocking, and I had an opportunity to go teach women because I was working in a nonprofit that taught financial literacy. So I learned a few tricks from them. And then I used those tricks because I have shared that experience with those students. I thought there must be a whole bunch of women out there that have the same stuff that I have. So I started going with Mana nationally, teaching women about financial literacy so that they could be self-sufficient. I didn't have a title. I was just the chick that they had brought along because she just knew a little bit of financial literacy. A few years ago, I was in a conference, and I saw the thousands of people that had been affected because the course was a seed course that women would then use to go back to their communities and teach other women. And little did I know that I was leading. And then I get invited to this group, and they were talking about downtown Topeka. And my best friend and I have a girls' conference, and we're just like trying to get these girls through the finish line of high school so that they could go to college. And they're like, hey, do you want to talk about downtown? We need some kids to tell us about downtown. And after 3 years of trying, business, amazing individuals with a ton of titles and influence were standing in front of the city council asking for money for downtown redevelopment. And at that moment, it wasn't I who led. It was one of my mentees, who was a Shawnee Heights student called Michelle Hubbard, that stood in front of the council and told them, downtown sucks, and if you don't do something about it, we're all leaving. And that leader got us the $5 million that if you come to downtown Topeka today, it's a world of difference. And she was leading. So, why am I sharing all this and talking about leading from where you're at? You see, I never got the title of mayor because I had the title of leader. I was just a person. I didn't get the title of mayor because I am a single mother who is absolutely imperfect, with a child with a mental health disability, with 2 daughters, because that is awesome. That is who I am. And the problem that we have with leadership today is that we talk about leadership as if prescribed by a job. Because it's prescribed because somebody else called you that. And that is not what leadership is. We think that leaders have to walk away, talk away, act a certain way. And that is the biggest disservice that we've done, because what we're creating is this world in which we're trying to fit into a box that we don't have. And in trying to fit into that box, we're making a bigger box for ourselves. And all that anger that I was having stays pent up inside of you. Leadership is being able to recognize who you really are and come to peace with yourself and with your history, so that you're able to stand and celebrate who you are, because in that action, you give somebody else permission to be all of who they are. And that brings beauty, because that's authenticity. You all have a circle. Today, during dinner, I had some of the most profound conversations that I had had with students in a long time. And it was absolutely phenomenal that both faculty and students were asking so many provocative things. And we were just having this great discussion. And one of the things that I told them was, you know what, it's kind of interesting, because we have told our kids for so long, don't talk about sex, politics, and religion. And because we don't talk about those things that shape us, right? We now walk around like this, trying not to say the wrong thing to each other. Whereas if we leaned in a little bit, we would open ourselves up to the beautiful universe that somebody else has that makes them who they are. And the world would be a better place, because we wouldn't have an inflammatory reaction to something that we don't understand. Because we would have a world, go figure that, in which it's okay for you to be who you are and believe what you do, because it doesn't affect the way that I act. Because no matter where I stand, you're going to accept me as a human being. And that is beautiful. When I started talking, I said, you all have the responsibility to lead. It is your utmost responsibility to understand who you are, what your scars are, so that you're able to proudly open those up to somebody that needs to see them, so that they know that they're not alone. You need to have the fortitude to dance to your own tune, so that maybe somebody that's dying to dance on the corner could join you. You need to be a leader first and foremost in yourself, and you will do ripples of effects in your communities. So, I will pause there. Thank you very much, and I'm open for questions. I didn't go over time, 25 minutes.
So I think maybe people could just come down if you have a question. Do we have microphones here? Or not? Please just come up and ask and speak loudly.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Melissa. I was just wondering when you had that moment that you were like, I'm leading right now. Even though I'm not leading because I'm mayor, I'm not leading because of my position, I'm not leading because of other circumstances. I'm leading because I'm being a leader right now to other people.
Whew. I don't know, that changes every day. But I think that when I stopped worrying about not what other people think in the sense of constructive criticism, because you always have to have people to keep you sharp. But when I started really saying, okay, I'm just gonna be me. I just was probably when I turned like 38. I had lived through cancer, a stroke, a divorce, a rape, and I was finally in a spot that I was in a leadership position that I could say, you know what, I made it. I don't have to keep on trying to put on somebody else's suit to be who I am. But don't get me wrong, on a regular basis, I have the, fear moments that I'm trying to figure out who I am still. That's an evolution, but yeah, I think it was when I was like 38. Takes a while, sorry, no magic pill.
So looking back on where you've been, where do you plan on going? What's the next step? What do you live a comfortable life or just keep on growing, and how would you like to do that?
So my lifelong dream is to be able to provide for my kids for their education, and so that I could be debt free so that I can give all my money away. And I am by no means of the imagination debt free right now, but I feel pretty blessed that every time that I get extra money, I just give it away to worthwhile nonprofit organizations, and so that's my aspiration. I just radically want to make the world a better place, and I know that I can't do the whole world, but anything that's around me, I want to try to make it better. So I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. That's the short answer.
I'll stand up so you can see me. Thank you for your backstory, just for starters. I did have a question about your sentiment that we put leaders in boxes. We think of maybe specifically the title of mayor as should act, talk, look a certain way. That's a little bit ambiguous. Where, do you think the cause of that is? Where do we see these boxes being created, and why do we put people in those boxes?
I think that, pardon me, I think that is history. In legal terms, they call it precedent. You have a history indicating what you needed to be in order for you to be in a position. And especially in this country that's so young, in which you did not have women in leadership roles, and you did not have individuals of color in leadership roles. I think that the expectation was that in order for you to be a leader, you look up to people, which is why it's so important to have representative leadership, right? Because then you're able to see and say, oh, okay, so yeah, you're a leader. That's novel. But I think that it's just the precedent that we had of what leadership meant, that people for so long have kept on trying to repeat that. It's the history.
Hello, I am a Topekan, so I actually watched you get elected on TV, and I just was curious, how did it feel to be elected mayor of Topeka? What was that feeling?
So, the only way that I know how to be is honest, so you opened up a can of worms. I had 5 years experience in city leadership, and I had devoted my whole life to nonprofit work. Extremely known in the community, and there was a card sent out the day before the primary that said that I was a Democrat and my opponent was a Republican. I ran against 4 Caucasian males, and that incredibly changed the outcome of the election. So after me winning the primary with, I think it was 4,000 votes, I ended up winning the election with only 500. So it was this moment of, and everybody was so excited, and it was oh my God, you won! And I'm thinking, 500 votes? And it wasn't just this feeling of, oh my God, it was just all the work that our team had done, and it was just this real big realization that you have 40 volunteers out fundraised, knocked on a whole bunch of doors yourself, participated in over 20, the most amount of forums, and that still was not enough for individuals to not focus on party and not focus on what we know is the obvious, which is the fact that I was a Latina woman as well. And of course, the funny part was that one of the biggest arguments was, how can she do this? She's gonna keep a full-time job and she's a single mom. How is she gonna be mayor? And it's just like, watch me. But you know, most guys wouldn't be asked that question, right? Because there's a ton of attorneys that are working in the State House, that are senators. And nobody asked. By the way, Governor Collier was still doing surgery while he was governor. But I was judged because I was going to keep a job to feed my family. So I just gave you a download of how I felt when I won the election.
So, I believe it's easy to lead people that is like us. They think like us, they walk like us. How do you lead people that is completely different from you?
Compassion. I think when we talked a little bit about this, when we were having our dinner discussion, a lot of times, and this is what I tell a lot of the students and the community members and the activists that we work with, it's very hard to be the individual in the quote-unquote minority, having constantly to explain yourself and help somebody understand your position and bring them over. But if you come from a position of compassion and understanding that a lot of things that we all do, I read a lot of psychology, comes from the lizard brain. So it's fast thought. We don't even think about it. The way that we drive, the way that we eat, the way that we breathe, you don't think about it. I teach about implicit bias, and there's something called the Stroop Effect, which if I show you colors and tell you what's your favorite color, and you look at the colors with the matching names, you're gonna say it like this. If I do the same thing and I switch the slide and I put the name of the color but a different color, your brain is gonna pause because you're breaking the pattern of your brain. Your brain is lazy. So if we all had that basic understanding and had compassion with other people and help them learn, you're able to do it. But it's a huge exercise. It's a big exercise, but it can be done. I can tell you that our city council, even though it was a little bit divided in the election, we have probably some of the best council members right now. There's no bickering, we laugh together, and we're all super different. Super different. Because we treat each other as humans and we focus on what we do have in common versus the things that we don't.
So I'd like to ask, what do you tend to do when things do not go to plan these days? Is there a certain pattern you have, or does it really depend on the situation?
Things don't go the way that I want every day. One of the beautiful things about leadership is you have to be adaptive. You have to roll with the punches. So it depends on what it is. I mean, I'll give you an example. We have a group that I'm super tight with in Topeka. It's called JUMP. It's a justice, unity, and anyway, it's a ministry. It's amazing. The leader is phenomenal. And we've been trying to get the council to understand that the same way that I'm frustrated because we just spent $730,000 to fix a bridge that we did not expect to have to fix, because there was an individual that did not have a place to live, who needed to be under that bridge to keep themselves warm, and started a fire so that they wouldn't die. We have a bridge that got broken. So I've been trying for 2 years to tell the council that we need to start a housing trust fund. And when this beautiful group of people came in on, hey, if we start a fund, we could have an endowment, that endowment would grow, we wouldn't depend anymore on the federal government, we could just make this happen, let's pull aside some money every year. And the council voted no. I was the only person that voted yes. So on that day, I was frustrated. And I still decided I need to work with these individuals. It's all gonna be okay. But it's frustrating. Sometimes things don't work out and you look that you lost that battle, but there's a much bigger war down the line. And then there's things that you have to put in buckets. If things don't go your way and it's something small, nah. If things don't go your way but it's something that you deeply feel that it has to be corrected, you wait. And you keep on fighting. But you can't give up.
Thank you.
I started noticing you when you started campaigning and you were on television, and I thought, well, I hope she gets elected. I think she'll be sharp for Topeka. And I think I was right. I think you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
As mayor. What's in the future? Are you planning maybe sometime going into politics? Because, boy, we sure do need some people with common sense in politics.
So, another rant, so I'm sorry for this. The problem that we have is that we keep on thinking that we need to elect a governor and a president and a mayor to do the job, right? No, you need to elect Congress and senators. Both House of Representatives in the state level and senators in the state level and House of Representatives and senators at the federal level. Because the president is just a signature. And they're out there and they're doing things. But the ones that are really enacting the votes and having the arguments and debating the common sense things are the people in those chambers. And we forget about them because we just don't have time with everything that's happening in our lives. So here's the sad reality. So when I decided that I was going to run for office, I didn't think about politics at all. But then I got into this and I was just like, at one point in time in my life, I was just like, oh my God, I would love to be a senator. But the reality is that I'm living in the state of Kansas. And the state of Kansas has not elected Democratic senators since the Great Depression. I don't think that there has been a woman, right? And the Lord knows that there has been no minorities. So I think that I have a lot more ability to influence cohorts of people like this when I'm not trying to politic you, and I can serve my community in a much bigger way than if I'm sitting in an office having to fight 99 other people that may have a very different idea. So I think that I'm going to be in Topeka. I was saying that I think that I'm just going to run for one term and then I'm just going to lay low, maybe go back to school for a while.
How do you build synergy among teams?
Mission. It's extremely important that you all know what you're working for. Because once you all, I think that I'm doing a lot of coursework right now through a fellowship with Harvard, and they talk about the same stuff that the Kansas Leadership Center talks about, which is you need to first define the problem, okay? We all have to agree that this is a situation that needs fixing. And then once we have all bought into and understand everybody's perspectives of what we need to work on, whenever somebody gets derailed, you bring them back to the mission. And you bring them back to the mission. Oh, I get you, absolutely. How does this impact the mission? I love your perspective. Let's talk about how that impacts the mission. And when you do that often enough and you allow people just to be who they are, you start building synergy. It's infectious. And then the other thing that's super important, again, is going back to that whole let somebody be who they are. And make sure that you have people in the right place. Just because you brought somebody to the team to be your secretary, and you figure out that they're great with numbers and they're miserable being a secretary, it drives me insane in companies and in municipalities. You have somebody that you know that they're miserable. Figure out what their talents are. Invest in the skill. If they're good people, put them where they're going to be successful. So you have to rise up to figure out where everybody's talents are, because as a leader, you're a talent broker. And you have to just like allow people to shine in their role.
Nice. Amazing story. I have a question. So, how do you keep motivation or hunger for education when you have full support of your parents, but then the culture that you live in or the environment you live in doesn't really encourage you to do so. It's graduating high school, if you get to it, graduating high school, and then going out, just going back to the workforce, just like your parents have. So how do you keep that motivation of education is power for me, I'm a woman, I can do greater things in life?
You have to wake up every morning and look at yourself in the mirror and remind yourself that if you don't break the cycle, generations of women behind you are going to repeat the same story that you're hating. You're a leader, lead. Get your inspiration by knowing that people that are going to come behind you and all around you without you knowing it are looking up to you. So keep on going.
So I was at dinner tonight and
Hey, girl.
I asked you the question of how do you still have hope? And I think that's a good conversation for everyone to hear and to hear your answer. But the question that I asked was, in the society that we're living in, as a minority, 2 times minority, sometimes 3 times minority, with just being a woman and then being a person of color, and seeing the way that society is moving and just trying to be who you are, be your authentic self, and trying to get your voice heard when you know sometimes that people are in privilege and they may unconsciously not know that they have that privilege, and you're trying to explain to them those things. So how do you keep that hope? Kind of like how do you keep that motivation, but like what's your hope and how do you keep moving forward?
So my answer to that is the same answer that I'm going to give right now, is the fact that this room gives me hope. The room that I had that I was having dinner at, woo, that's a hopeful room right there. You had people sitting down in front of the president talking about their challenges with diversity. A Caucasian female that was sitting there encouraging a female of color, saying, this is how I feel. Person happens to be their employee. Most people would have shriveled and said, oh, this is a reflection of me. How dare you say this in front of this person? It's a guest. Rather than that, the response was putting her hand over her and saying, like, hey, I get you, I get you. And the other thing that I was sharing is that people talk a lot of crud about millennials. I love millennials. My campaign was run by millennials. We still get together and have our food on a quarterly basis in my house because I love my team. But millennials have something that we never had. They have access to the globe. Whereas our generation and generations before us grew up only understanding the surroundings that we had, because you get up every morning, we're all creatures of habit, right? We all get up in the morning, we go to work, this is what we do, this is what the generations before us do. So you never question. Remember that lizard brain? You just live in routine. Millennials? Oh my God. I was telling them, my daughters love BTS. It's like, who the heck is BTS when they started talking about Korean pop? But they have access to the world because they have this global view of what the world is. They don't have to wait to travel to Korea to understand that there's awesome music there. They don't have to wait to understand that this is the traditions that they have in Islam and how, people pray at a certain time, because they see it and it's discussed in the media and in their world all the time. There is no such thing as a stranger for the millennial generation because everybody knows each other. We're the like generation, right? And it's just awesome. So when I see that, and I see the crucial conversations that we're starting to have, that gives me hope that we're living in a period of time. And we all go through different challenges, right? So this is just a spot in time. It'll move. And there's this generation of awesome leaders that is coming up, so there's a lot of hope.
Any other questions? Okay, well, a round of applause for